Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the fuck I want. And today, I want to talk about Perfect Days. Perfect Days is a Japanese movie about a man and his daily routine as a toilet cleaner. And that's all I can say about this movie without talking about spoilers. I will talk about this plot with spoilers now, but if you're only interested in my opinion, you can jump to this part. In Perfect Days, we follow a middle-aged man, Hirayama, on his daily routine as a toilet cleaner for a total of 12 days. The first day we spend with him is just a normal day in his life. He starts his day way too early, waking up to the sound of a sweeping broom rather than an alarm clock. He then puts away his futon, gets ready for work and takes care of his plants before stepping out of his home and taking a deep breath of fresh air, or however fresh it can be in a metropolis. Then he gets a drink from the vending machine in front of his house, gets into his car and drives to work. On his drive, he listens to music from a cassette tape. He works his shift with no complaints and very meticulously so, only speaking when necessary. The first time he talks is about 13 minutes into the movie to a seemingly distraught child. He helps the boy find his mom, and that's when we feel for the first time how thankless and looked down upon his job is. His colleague Takashi, who unlike Hirayama is very talkative, arrives late to his shift and is much less enthusiastic about the job. Hirayama has his lunch break at the park on a bench beneath trees. He loves trees and takes pics of them with a camera. The plants he takes care of at home are also saplings from trees. Once he's done with his shift, he drives back home, again listening to music from a cassette. He then goes to the bathhouse for a good soak, and afterwards he visits a bar for an after-work beer before heading back home again. At home, he reads a bit before going to sleep. In between the days, we see black and white dream sequences in which Hirayama processes his impressions of the day. Now, in the following days, there's always a break in his routine. First, I thought I was being smart and thought that each time there's a break in his routine, we get a literal shift in perspective by changing the camera's angle. But after rewatching it for the script, I realized I was wrong. It would have been cool though. The first break is when a friend of Takashi, Aya, appears, and Takashi needs to borrow Hirayama's car because his own moped won't start. Takashi is in need of money, so he suggests selling Hirayama's cassettes. They go to a shop to check out how much they're worth, but Hirayama refuses to sell them. Instead, he gives Takashi cash to get rid of him and his stupid idea. However, it was his last money and his car runs out of fuel midway home, so he has to sell one of his cassettes after all. At least that's what I think he's doing. This is the first time we see the usually content Hirayama unhappy, and there's no music on his way home. After another dream sequence, we reach the third day and the second break in his routine. This time, it's a game of tic-tac-toe he finds in one of the toilet stalls. This becomes part of his routine until the game is over. Another addition to his routine is a weird woman, an office worker I presume, who's having her lunch at the same park as Hirayama. I call her weird because she never smiles. She only stares at Hirayama, which is a bit awkward. Another dream sequence, another day. This time, Aya appears again to return a cassette he'd put in her purse, probably because he was so happy about their shared appreciation of his music. I suppose this counts as a break in his routine because he takes the time to listen to the cassette with her in his car and receives a peck on the cheek as a thank you. He also listens a bit to music by himself before he goes to the bathhouse on this day. Another dream sequence, another day. This time, it's his day off, but there's still a routine. He visits the shrine, goes to the laundromat to wash his working clothes, and goes to a shop to develop the pics he took of the trees. At home, he rewinds cassettes and sorts the pics of the trees. He's got a whole collection of them. He then visits a bookstore and finally a bar where he's been a regular visitor ever since it's opened. This establishment seems a bit more expensive than the usual bar he visits after work. Another dream sequence, another day. Back to work. The break in his routine this time is a bigger one. When Hirayama returns home from work, his niece, Nico, waits for him in front of his house and decides to stay with him. Even though uninvited, Hirayama can't say no to her. Which leads to the next break in his routine on the following day, when she accompanies him to work, and the day after, when she helps him out at work. Due to her presence, we learn a bit more about Hirayama's family background. For example, that he doesn't have much contact with his sister, and that's 1.5 hours into the movie. After work, they visit the bathhouse, and when they arrive back home, Iko's mother, Keiko, is awaiting them because Hirayama called her. The interaction with his younger sister leaves him devastated, because it seems his family is disappointed in his choice of work. There might be more to it, but it's left unsaid. Another dream sequence, another day. This time, his colleague, Takashi... I always want to say Takashi. Takashi. This time, his colleague Takashi quits, and Hirayama has to work a double shift. While he seems to be content with his job, he's not happy about the extra work, and rightfully so. Another dream sequence, another day. Luckily, his company quickly finds a replacement for Takashi, a woman called Sato. She seems much more motivated than Takashi, which is a pleasant surprise and probably a welcome change for Hirayama. Another dream sequence, another day off. However, even on his day off, his routine is disrupted when he witnesses the owner of the fancy bar, only known as Mama, embracing her ex-husband. After being caught, he basically bolts and has a beer by the river instead. Mama's ex-husband finds him, and they have a conversation where the ex explains that he has cancer and kind of wanted to make amends to her. Another dream sequence, and we've reached the final day. We follow Hirayama once again on his way to work in his car while music is playing, resulting in one hell of an ending. And that's it! I went into this movie with no prior knowledge or expectations. And even though this movie depicts an ordinary life of an ordinary human, it left me with a deep impression. It stuck with me for days, and I often caught myself thinking about it. But what makes this movie so good? For one, we have the protagonist, Hirayama. Even though he is a toilet cleaner, he seems to be content with his life. I thought it was quite admirable to see him wake up with a smile, leave his house with a smile, and do his job with a smile. All thanks to his beloved trees. As if a look at the trees is all he needs to find his inner peace. He's a kind and introverted guy with calm and introverted hobbies, like listening to music, taking pictures of trees, taking care of plants, and reading. He occasionally visits a bathhouse and bar, but even then, he barely speaks. The movie works excellently with only a few words. Some things just don't need to be spelled out for us to understand. For example, his occupation's reputation, his family situation, or his love for trees. In the same vein, I want to mention the sparse use of music. The only time music is played is during his way to work and back home. There are only a few exceptions, for example when he listens to the cassette with Aya in his car, on his day off at work, or at the bar when Mama sings. Just like there are many breaks in his routine, the movie also shows that even a simple person has many layers. While Hirayama seems to be calm and doesn't get worked up easily, there are moments where he breaks character. For example, when he's sad because he has no money for gas, when he's angry because he has to work a double shift, or when he's playing that rather childish shadow game with another grown man, which is absolutely adorable in my opinion and one of my favorite scenes. Especially since both tried to be tough and grown up before when they tried to smoke and failed. One of the major breaks, however, is when he has that small breakdown after the short interaction with his sister. And can I just say that, especially in this day and age, I cannot fathom how such dirty jobs like toilet cleaners, trash collectors, etc. are still frowned upon. Can we just stop being elitist and simply appreciate people for doing their job? These jobs are important and should be appreciated. Just because it's a shit job, literally, doesn't mean the person who's working that position is a shit or dirty person. That's such an outdated worldview. Show some respect. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Another particularly striking thing about this movie are the dream sequences in between the days. Now, I'm no good at interpretations. I can't read between the lines for shit. I'm sure there's a deeper meaning to these dreams besides just processing the impressions of his day, but I didn't get it. I'm also sure that there are many things left unsaid or unexplained in this movie that I failed to see. For example, the sky tree that's frequently shown and pointed out at some times. There's certainly some kind of symbolism here, but again, I didn't get it. Same goes for some of the characters. Every character in this movie has a purpose for the story. Most of them exist to break Hirayama's routine and show a new facet of his personality. But then we have that homeless guy, for example, who dances around in various spots throughout the movie. But we don't know whether he's drunk or delusional or plainly enjoying his life. His dancing also reminded me of the way we portray trees in theater. But again, same as the sky tree. If there's any symbolism here, I missed it. And lastly, we have the boy with Down syndrome, Dera-chan. I doubt that he was only written into the movie for representation purposes. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for representation. But if that's the character's only purpose, they very much feel like a token, which I'm sure you would agree is not good. But just like the homeless guy, he isn't the reason for a break in Hirayama's routine. I thought about it a lot, and my conclusion was that he probably was there to show us Takashi's softer side. Like, I didn't like Takashi very much because we only get to know him as this unmotivated colleague who desperately wants a girlfriend. But thanks to Dera-chan, we learn that his kindness isn't on the superficial side. But then again, once he quit, he seems like he also abandoned Dera-chan, so doesn't that mean their connection was just superficial after all? Well, I don't know. I just know that I thought it was cute how he indulged Dera-chan's love for his ears, but then it was just so heartbreaking to see how Takashi left without even saying goodbye to his good friend. But maybe I'm just reading too much into it. As always, I don't want to end on a negative note, so let's talk about the best part of this movie, which is, hands down, the ending. The camera is pointed at Hirayama's face head on as he drives to work, listening to one of his cassettes, while both happiness and sadness are displayed on his face, both ever so subtle and yet so prominent. During that scene, I was internally begging, don't cut away, and it didn't, and it was perfect. Not a second too short or too long, in my opinion. And the acting in this scene, chef's kiss. To me, the moral of the story is to do whatever makes you happy, no matter how small or mundane it might be, and no matter whether other people disagree or not, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. How about you? Have you had a chance to watch it yet? Maybe you can tell me more about the symbolism of the dreams and the sky tree, or is there maybe something completely different that you caught and I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear me ramble about, leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye!